This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
But let's get back on track with Cornette. He has got nuclear heat almost right away. He knows how to play this heel persona. It's working like a charm, to the point that fans are starting to actually attack him on his way to and from the ring. He even starts loading his tennis racket, the little famous zip up tennis racket cover. He starts sliding a horseshoe in there just in case. And we've heard about some of the craziness that happened over the years. Did anybody draw the kind of heat that Jim Cornette did? It feels like he had a knack for it like almost no one else.
There may have been intervals, Conrad, where somebody got hot as a heel, shot the right angle. And so for a interval of time, a period of time, pardon me, they had the same comparable heat. But over consistently, week in, week out, not a chance. He was the king of that. And I remember one time in Tulsa, Cowboy loved to have heat finishes. There would be times where you have a long program with a top heel and a top baby face, and the baby face might not get his hand raised till the blow off.
Right.
I mean, he might get a win by DQ, he might get a win by count out, but you didn't come in there and beat the heels very often in a way that would diminish their villainy. So, and Bill was bad about that. He loved the heat, and you had to be a tough son of a bitch and brave and bold and all that good stuff to withstand being booked in Mid-South if you're a top heel, because he's going to load the heat on you. How can will you handle it appropriately? Can you withstand it? Because it's very likely going to get physical. Now, a story I will tell you happened in Tulsa, but to preface that, Louisiana, especially Southern Louisiana, the New Orleans, the Lake Charles, the Lafayette's, all those clubs down there, Baton Rouge, go Tigers. Ed Orgeron, throw him in there. Good old Ed. He's one of your SEC boys.
Yeah, he is.
Go Tigers. He would, that was where it got really gnarly. I mean, really gnarly. So where sometimes the cops would call for backup. The security guys were all local cops. They weren't rent-a-cops. They had guns. They had nightsticks, and they used the nightsticks often to get fans off of heels. I remember one time I did a referee deal where I didn't see the gimmick, the loaded glove or whatever, and the hero got beat after it looked like he was going to win because the heel used a foreign object. So I didn't leave. I learned later on how to do that. You always leave with the heels because they had the most cops around them. And I left with the baby faces trying not to make good. I'm sorry, and I got the shit beat out of me on the way back to the locker room. I got hit in the face, the ear, the arm. I was bruised. And when I got the back, the guy said, somebody's got to tell you, when you have a hot finish, you got to leave with the heels because they got the cops with them. So I remember that's for this night. That's when I was standing next to this fan or walking, trying to get away from him. He grabbed me again. The cop pulled his nightstick out, which was a pool cue, the fat end of a pool cue. And it had been hollowed out with some kind of lead or something in it. So it made it heavier, obviously. So it had a hole in it, had a little leather handle. You could put the little leather strap through it, hold it on your wrist. I heard the guy's arm break. It scared the dog shit out of this fat boy because he reached and grabbed me, and he's already been pulled off of me once. My nose is bleeding. My eye was swelling up. And this cop pulls his nightstick out and hits that son of a bitch right across the forearm. Crack. They say you can sometimes hear these bones cracking. Swear to God, it's true. And this guy pissed his pants, broke his arm, all these things. But I got to the locker room finally, and the boys thought it was funny. Young kid, 22, 23 years old at that time. But that was Southern Louisiana, man. So Cornette's leaving Tulsa. A little more refined city, perhaps, one might surmise. And some big old redneck, Okie, was able to long arm to get his hand across the railing. And he hit Cornette square between the eyes as you could. It would be like hitting a tomato. because his nose splattered all over his face. There was blood everywhere. And I remember the story vividly. He gets in the back, God damn, kill him, motherfucker, son of a bitch, let me have him, let me have him. Like, okay, easy now, Tiger. So Cowboy was there. So Cowboy peels Cornette away from the guy. And because Bill had that rule, remember, you get your ass whipped by a fan. So Cornette he didn't qualify for that rule. You get hit by the fan, you get your ass beat up, rather, you're done. So he pulls Cornette off, sends him to the heel dressing room. So then Cowboy takes the disciplinary action into his own hands, literally, and beat the shit out of the guy with the cops there, the city cops there. They just turned around and looked the other way because Cowboy was paying them. They liked Bill. So that's the kind of heat we had there in that era. But it was all generated because of the ability of Bobby and Dennis to pull off a perfectly executed heel finish, the old heel screw job, and win by unscrupulous means. So that was just how it was. And it was finished like that night after night and on TV. The heels did the one thing Bill would do for the baby faces, he'd get them some wins on television. You had to. But when it came to the house shows and you're working returns and you're in Baton Rouge every Tuesday night, you got to get them to come back the next week. Or you're in New Orleans every Thursday night, you got to get them to come back the next week. And a lot of that was to pay to see the bad guys get their comeuppance and what they deserve. So it was a hell of a deal. But Cornette had more heat than anybody. And that's why the matches that he was in, when he finally got into matches and finally started doing angles with him, that's why they worked so successfully.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Grillin' JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. Heavy on the mister. How are you, Jim?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Still back down here in Florida, enjoying Jacksonville Beach. You know, the football schedule, college football schedule, I'm sure you're same boat. We don't really know how this season is going to progress or if it will. Will it end as it's currently booked? Or will it another outbreak or outbreaks occur that prevent the game from continuing? So I'm spending more time in Florida right now during football season, more than I ever dreamed I would, because of the uncertainty of the football situation. You know, I'm not big on a stadium with 20,000 people when it seats 85.
Right.
And I understand though why it is.
Right.
I'm also not big on going to a football game and sitting around a whole lot of other people that may or may not be wearing masks, even though they're supposed to wear them. So it's a whole different era. This damn virus stuff. It's just, I'm tired of it. And but we got to endure it because it's a killer. So I'm back in Florida, enjoying that. A lot of AEW stuff. You know, we've had some good TVs and a good pay-per-view, and I'm tickled that we're here. But if you're going to be hanging someplace, hanging out on the beach at my stage of life ain't a bad thing. Not a bad way to wake up and look out your window and see the ocean and see the sand. And if there's a peace of mind there that sounds kind of melancholy or maybe childish even to some people, but it's a different way of life, Conrad. It's a different way of life. And so far, I'm really enjoying it.
Well, we're glad you're enjoying it. You've earned it, my friend. And you guys have been cooking with gas on AEW lately. We appreciate all your efforts there. Of course, All Out was a big success. And, we've got fans back in there for Dynamite, and, Dynamite quit bouncing around a little bit and was back on Wednesdays. It's a good time to be an AEW fan, and it's a great time to be a wrestling fan right now. Well, before he got there, he had to bounce around a little bit, including a stopover with Jim Crockett Promotions. And you actually joined Jim Crockett after Cornette and the Midnights had already arrived. Did you think that Cornette had stepped his game up from when you first met him in Mid-South, or was he still the same great Cornette? Was he consistent the whole time, or do you think he improved over the years?
Oh, he kept getting better, more experience, more reps. He didn't quit becoming great. If anything, he kept getting better, and because he got his act down totally. It had been refined through Cowboy, starting with Jarrett and Lawler, but then the big growth came in Mid-South, and then working where he could pretty much call his shots creatively and things of that nature in world class. by the time he got to work for Dusty and Jimmy Crockett, he was amazingly proficient and the kind of guy that didn't rest on his laurels, that wanted to get better. So I think he kept getting better. He was just, at that point in time, Conrad, arguably, he was by far the best manager in wrestling. I think. I mean, the only guy in that era that even compares to him was Heyman. And Heyman didn't have the variety of experiences in the territories in a key role that Corny did. So I think he was proud of the fact that he was considered the best manager in wrestling, and was not going to let anything happen to usurp his positioning within the business.
Cornette becomes your partner in 1989. He joins you in the booth for Saturday Night. Whose idea was it for Cornette to join you? What did you think of the move, and how do you think he did?
I've always said that Corny was one of my best partners ever. He was a natural. We had that great chemistry from a friendship and from a familiarity standpoint that we developed in Mid-South. It was absolutely no surprise to me he was going to be great at that role. He's like any other wrestler. Sometimes you got to back him off a little bit, learn to speak in sound bites a little bit more proficiently and more frequently, instead of doing a promo or bringing everything back around to their guys, instead of getting everybody over that you can, even babyface if you're a heel. He refined that game, but it didn't take him long to do it. That's how quick a study he was. Brilliant student of the game. I think I helped him. I think he helped me. But it was a natural fit. Some of the best shows that I've done in my career were with Cornette as my color commentator. And he just was, he never missed, man. He got it. He understood the concept of every match has got an end story. Every match you see on television today has a bottom line, as Stone Cold would say.
Well, there's no way he started out as just your best partner ever. What were some things that were tough for him in the transition from being a manager to being a broadcaster that maybe you had to coach him up on some of the finer points that you had discovered from doing it for so long?
I think just talking and run-on sentences. I think not being able to pull off the sound bites. I encourage all the color guys I work with, pardon me, if what you should try to strive to do is if you're going to talk in sound bites, and I told this to sportscasters, a lot of guys that I've met ask me pointers. If you're a color analyst, even a college football game, and I told guys this, I work on a national basis, you got to give me the meat of the story first. And then if you got time, you can back it up. So in other words, very basic example would be Steve Austin's arguably the greatest wrestler of all time. Now, if you got time, you've made your declarative statement. If you have time within what's going on in the ring to back that up with why you think that, then do it then. But don't do it first, do it second. Say your definitive statement as a soundbite guy, color guy, because you're going to get in and you're going to get out. And if we do that with enough continuity, you'll be able to back that up throughout the show or throughout this match. So I think that is the same thing a lot of guys have, especially a great talker. He's got so much to say that you can't say it in one breath.
Right.
So give it to me a little shorter, and I'm the point guard here. I want to get you the ball back just in a second. And so we finally got that chemistry. So that was the main thing. It certainly had nothing to do with his ability to interpret a match or to understand a storyline, things of that nature at all. He got that. He knew that like the back of his hand. But just the fundamental rudimentary things of broadcasting, where you need to talk in sound bites, get in and get out, and that way you can get more content in than these run-on sentences, was not good. So the soundbite thing was probably the biggest issue. And then, being able to he was so good at being a heel, endorsing the heels almost predictably, that sometimes he could be accused of not helping get the baby faces over. Because he's a heel, God damn it. But you could be, he got there, he was able to do that. In his own heel style, he became very proficient at putting over baby faces, not necessarily endorsing the baby faces, but pointing out their positives. And that's a better deal. Trying to sell somebody with double negatives, it's like saying, well, Ole JR was a pretty good high school football player. He was awful slow. And, of course, and he was fat. That ain't gonna work. Double negatives. You always got to balance it out. So that was one small issue, but I think the soundbite factor was probably the biggest one of all.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.